afternoon and welcome to Real Estate Live UK. Real Estate Live takes place 3 times a year in February, June and October. This week's on programme of events are free to attend you by White Label, our partners, our sponsors, and thank you to all of the organisations that have contributed to this fantastic lineup taking place this week. During the 1 hour sessions, places across the UK are showcasing investment opportunities and industry-leading experts from the public and private sectors will be discussing new ideas and topical issues related to property. You can view the full programme taking place on our website at www.realestatelive.uk. This session that is about to begin is how can Croydon ensure that its regeneration is inclusive in partnership with Develop Croydon. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you, the audience, to feel free to ask questions using the Zoom's Q&A function. And now over to you, Sam, Technical Director of WSP.
Thanks very much, Amy. So welcome everyone to this session exploring inclusive growth in Croydon with a £5.25 billion regeneration programme focused on regeneration of the town centre and the wider opportunity area, a massive housing target of just short of 30,000 homes and job creation of 23,000 jobs over the next 10 years. It's one of the largest centres for growth in the capital. So there's some key questions for how public, private and third sector partners can best work together to lever social value from this level of investment and work to ensure that development that comes forward best caters for local communities and those that already live in the borough. So I'm really pleased to be joined by an expert panel from public, private and third sectors who are working on the ground and actively involved in delivery. So I'd like to introduce Heather Cheesbrough, Director of Planning and Strategic Transport at the London Borough of Croydon, Daren Nathan, Partnership Director at London Square, Anne-Marie Headley, Trustee of Onside and Legacy Youth Zone, and Roger Wade, Director at Boxpark. So I'll be asking the panel for their quick-fire perspectives and reflections on inclusive growth in the borough before opening that out to a wider discussion. So please feel free to post any questions you may have into the chat function and we can put those to the panel. So Heather, to start with you, to pose a question, how has the council tried to ensure that the local community benefits most from the regeneration that's taking place?
Thank you. Yes, and thank you for inviting me. Croydon, as you said, is got a huge amount of regeneration going on, and the council has always recognised that the local community is absolutely integral to that regeneration, and that regeneration and growth is what the council has been very positive about. But regeneration has to benefit those residents and communities from that growth. Now in Croydon, we've got great disparity between wealth and deprivation in the borough. And so therefore, our most deprived residents, we need to make sure that they do benefit. And crucially, I mean, you talked about our housing target. The delivery of homes is one of the fundamental ways that we can ensure that our communities do benefit, because having a safe and secure and a fit for purpose home is really important in terms of your life chances and your quality of life. So we are busy delivering plenty of homes, and also it's incredibly important, particularly for private communities, that they are affordable homes as well. So we have fairly strong affordable homes policies to help ensure that we do get that delivery of homes. We also, in terms of planning, ensure that we have a strong package of benefits that are negotiated around our housing and development generally in terms of Section 106 to deliver on things like skills and training and sustainable transport and infrastructure. And of course, we have a CIL. Not every borough has a CIL charge. We do, and we're looking to revise that as well to make sure that we try and maximise the CIL from development, so that infrastructure delivery that CIL is there for, that we do get the right infrastructure, be it more schools, more leisure centres, sustainable transport initiatives, etc., all those things. And it's just absolutely critical that we get that infrastructure in place as soon as possible. in terms of, particular initiatives, we're working very hard in the town centre at the moment to ensure that is a focus of regeneration activity. And I'd like to talk a bit more about that perhaps during the panel session, but that is something that we are working on to try and bring forward the redevelopment of the Whitgift, because obviously post-pandemic, the whole environment has changed in terms of town centres, and we think that town centres are a focus of communities and their activities of jobs and training, of life and economic regeneration. So it is vital that we do focus on our town centres, and to that end we had a really important cabinet report in August that set out our proposal, which is very much around engaging with our communities to help bring that regeneration forward, and with stakeholders in a really collaborative fashion.
Fantastic, thank you very much indeed. So Daren, turning to you, from your perspective at London Square, how can we best ensure that new developments are ensured to be inclusive, and what do you do to make sure that you achieve that on the private sector side?
Thanks, Sam, and really nice to be part of Real Estate Live, and especially talking about regeneration. And I'll come back on immediately to something we're doing in Croydon and how we got that going as well. I'm Partnerships Director at London Square, and we started 3.5 years ago as partnerships. The business has been going for 11 years as a house builder, and we're generally known as delivering developments in London. And the partnerships division was all about how we work with public sector partners and how that then delivers on some of those promises that the public sector, the local authorities, the housing associations want to achieve. And the key behind regeneration, actually, and how developers can help, how house builders can help, and what we're doing, we're working with Peabody at the former Holloway prison. We're going to deliver over 1,000 homes. There's going to be 60% affordable. I'm going to link all of these together in a second with one finishing touch. We're at Vulcan Wharf in Newham, where there's 457 homes. There's over 100,000 square feet of employment space. We're working with Clarion down in Croydon, West Croydon, with St Michael's Court. And the thing that brings them all together is, Heather's talked about that commitment that come through the Section 106 around employment. Well, actually, the developer and the house builder can do that much more by creating more opportunity through what we're delivering, by working with local trades, because we know that we can reduce carbon footprint by looking at how we use local initiatives and local universities and colleges to make sure we're getting more people into the industry. And then, of course, there's the key that unlocks it all, I think, is the public realm. At West Croydon, the key to unlocking this development and getting the support from the council, with 2 towers delivering 240 homes, actually was to demolish some rather bedraggled commercial units and create a new public square. And that's it, the public square. Anyone can go through it. Everyone can walk across it. You can get much better access to different parts of Croydon. And of course, West Croydon will unlock a view of St Michael's, the church there, that otherwise was hidden by these horrible derelict buildings. We're working in Lea Bridge with Waltham Forest Council, where part of our scheme is to deliver the new station entrance for Lea Bridge, which they reopened after 30 years and now has over 600,000 people using it. We've got a new public area, we've got a community hub, we've got retail, we've got commercial. And to me, if I'm thinking about what regeneration does, it's how any one development through its inclusivity brings people from around the development in through it, using it and enjoying it. And I think that's pretty much how we as house builders can help, alongside, as I say, all the initiatives around what we spend in those local areas, making sure it's going to local people.
Fantastic. Thanks, Daren, for that. So Anne-Marie, welcome to the conversation. I'd like to ask you, from your perspective at Legacy, what would you point to as some of the best initiatives, and how can the real estate sector best support what it is you're doing? I think there's a small video or short video to be shown. Is that right, Amy, at this point?
I think we have a couple of background slides there.
Slides.
Some fantastic visuals on our new facility in Croydon. But just to introduce myself, my name's Anne-Marie Headley, and I'm very proud to say that I was born and raised in Croydon. In terms of my background, I've spent about 20 years in the technology sector in companies like Cisco, Uber, and now Google. I also sit on the board of a variety of different youth charities, including Onside. And for those of you who don't know, Onside are a national charity that fund and develop youth centres. And I like to call them super youth centres, if you like. So the Onside network, along with Legacy, which is Croydon's youth centre, which was named by the young people as Legacy, is something that I'm very passionate about. And for me, these state-of-the-art, spectacular youth centres, which are generally 2,500 square metres with 10 to 12 fully equipped rooms that do everything from sports, fitness, well-being, cooking. We have sensory rooms, climbing walls, you name it, we have it. And I'm really pleased to say that this venture has been going for 2 years. Legacy recently celebrated their 2nd birthday. To tell you a bit about how it works, young people have access up to 20 different activities of an evening, and the youth centre is open when the schools are not. So think about 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. Young people can get access from 50p alongside with an annual membership of £5. And as you can imagine, we've had a huge amount of interest from young people in Croydon and the surrounding 5 boroughs as well. And we have over 7,000 members, and we've been able to maintain that through the pandemic, which I think is a huge success. So you may be familiar with the expression, talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. And that phrase really gets to the heart of what it is, the problem that we are trying to solve through our youth centre networks. And in fact, Legacy Youth Zone's vision is to help young people be the best that they can be. And in this era of reverse mentoring, I also think that our young people can also help you be the best that you can be as well. So how can youth zones help inclusive regeneration? Well, sometimes regeneration doesn't actually create meaningful pathways for young people to grow and develop in the right ways, but also more importantly, to connect with the local economy. At Legacy, we see ourselves as a platform for everybody, the whole community. So business, public sector, health services, the police, and other specialist charitable organisations. We all work together to provide meaningful outcomes for young people in Croydon. We're also business-led, and we also, a large amount of our funding comes from the private sector. And together with our ecosystem, we like to think that we build high visibility flagship centres that really say to the community that we care about our young people. So in terms of how the real estate sector can get involved, there's lots of ways to do that. What's really important to us are long-term partnerships, because that's really the way to sustain a venture of this ilk. But there's lots of ways to get involved through mentoring, reverse mentoring, volunteering, hiring a room, perhaps coming along and participating in one of our networking events or joining a focus group. There's lots of ways that you can get involved. So we just ask, come down, meet us, introduce yourselves, get to know our young people. And I'm very confident that when you do, you'll love them as much as I do. And together, let's find a way to make a difference to our next generation of rising stars and leaders. I'd also like to say a special thank you to all of our partners who got us to this point. So as you can see on the slide, many of them are Croydon Develop members. So Ruskin Square, L&Q, Optivo, CCHA, Day Lewis, Gatwick Airport, and of course, Croydon Council. And if I've mentioned anything that's piqued your interest and you want to know how to get involved, then please feel free to reach out to Barnabas Shelburne, who is the CEO of Legacy in Croydon, or David Mellis, who is the Relationship Development Manager for Onside. You can reach us through our website. Please do reach out and we'd be happy to start a conversation from there.
Great, really, really exciting. Thank you, Anne-Marie, for that. So, Roger, could I ask you, so what is the role of culture in the evening economy from your perspective in driving regen and inclusivity?
I haven't got a clue, but I like to say it's an absolute pleasure to follow Anne-Marie. We absolutely love what Onside and Legacy are doing. and help the council and help Schroeder make an investment into Onside. And I echo Anne-Marie's words that we should be encouraging more councils, more private developers to work with Onside. I used to actually be a youth worker back in the day, and I used to work in play centres, which were effectively places where particularly children that came from single parents would go to after school. So between the hours of 3:30 and 6 o'clock, before they, while their parents was working. And one of the most disappointing things I've seen over the past 20 years is the destruction of youth services. And that's led to a lot more problems for the youth of today. And I really think that Onside is a fantastic charity, and I know it's one that we're happy to support. So I just needed to get that in because I'm such a fan. I really am, and doing more. But look, back to your question. Boxpark has been in Croydon now for 5 years. We built Boxpark Croydon in 2006. It was a partnership between ourselves and Croydon Council and Schroeder's, and it really was in a similar way to Onside Youth Zones. It was a similar partnership. The land was brought to us by Schroeder's and the council. We were lucky enough that the council initially supported us in what at the time was a difficult business model. And as part of that payback, I guess, we've helped maybe put Croydon back on the map. I'm not saying we've done it solely, but we've helped with that. And the Ruskin Square development, which has got over 2 million square foot, I think they've now let over 500,000 square foot to the Inland Revenue and the Home Office. And, in our small part, we've been part of that. And we're really, really keen to see projects like the Whitgift or Croydon Partnership come together, because we really do believe in Croydon as a city. For those of you that don't know, if Croydon, I think, is the largest borough, or certainly was the largest borough in London. Just give me a minute here. It was the largest borough, or is one of the largest boroughs in London. If it was a city, it'd be the 8th largest city in Britain. And the reality is that people just didn't believe in Croydon when we first came there. But we've had a fantastic experience of working in Croydon. And when we're talking about regeneration today, I think we really need to focus away from the concept of building homes, but not building houses, shall I say, but to building homes. And as Daren rightly say, homes are very different from houses. They're about creating public spaces. They're about creating fantastic shopping, fantastic offices in the area. It's not just one thing. It's not just about houses. We need to create the entire ecosystem. And that is why it's critical for us to have a fantastic Croydon partnership. We welcome seeing that. When you talk about community programs, community is not this sort of charity word. It's not this altruistic sort of word that we're all getting behind. It's actually just good business. The community is our local customer. So at Boxpark, we really focus on having 250 events a year. We appeal directly in their community-led events that we have there. We have over 200 or 300 jobs that we created, and particularly for young people. We like to think that Legacy is taking care of them up until the age of 18, and hopefully colleges are taking care of them after that, but we're giving them an opportunity after college. And we create over 1 million visitors to Croydon, and I think 10 to 15 million of additional spend to the local economy. So I just want to stress that Croydon, in our time of being in Croydon, it's been absolutely fantastic. It's a great city to be in. It's on the doorsteps of London, but we need to create homes, not houses.
Fantastic. Thank you, Roger. That's really interesting. So I think at this point we'll open it up to a bit of discussion from the panel. So thank you to those that have put their questions into the Q&A function. So first question here we have, and I will pose this question to Heather. I think if you could take this one, that would be great. What do the panel think that the one most important thing that would help Croydon retain its young talent within the borough? Heather, what are your thoughts on that?
We've got to provide jobs and we've got to provide homes. Two things. First off, I mean, we talked a lot about houses and homes. I totally agree. It is homes, and I've always used that word, homes. And we have to provide a variety of homes that are affordable and in a whole range of different typologies. And there's some interesting stuff. You know, we've got a new co-living scheme going up by Tide, which is next to 10 Degrees, which will provide housing which is because it's co-living in a variety of different sizes. It can be attractive to a whole range of different incomes. And there's also pocket living, which is a scheme that I cycled past today and saw that it was starting to look a lot more finished. And that again is about lower cost homes for particularly for people, and I know key workers are particularly focused on by pocket and that sort of sector. Jobs as well, ensuring that there are proper, jobs and that our young people are appropriately skilled for them and to access them. That's something that we do in our team as well in terms of economy and skills and training. We've got Croydon Works that helps a huge amount with young people in terms of apprenticeships and helping people furthest from the job market away. So the council's doing a number of things there to help people in. And I think, the fact that London South Bank University has just opened up this September, that's fantastic. It's there building partnerships in the community and provides a whole range of courses, some real vocational ones as well, so to appeal to all types of people. And I think that those are the sorts of things that are really critical. I mean, in addition, all we talked about in terms of place shaping, having an attractive place that people want to stay in and set up their lives in is really important. Things like having, the right sorts of public realm, the place shaping elements of it all. That's really critical. But I think to start off with, you have to make sure that there are the delivery of homes and jobs that are the right type for people.
Great, thank you very much indeed for that. And Roger, I was really interested in what you were saying about local employment initiatives and what Boxpark are doing in relation to that. Could you expand a bit on that element of what you were saying?
I don't know how I can really expand. I mean, it's as simple as this. We create 200 or 300 jobs. I think we're a developer stroke operator. We're not a developer that comes to a site, builds a development and then runs away. We stay in the community and the community is integral to the success of Boxpark, and that's absolutely key. So, I mean, I'll be frank, when we first came to Croydon, many people said to us, God, why are you going to Croydon? And our question back to them was, why not go to Croydon? It's people just had to believe in it. And I have seen that change over the past 5 years. I've seen people change. I've seen a lot more housing go up around Boxpark, 10 Degrees, and I've seen Inland Revenue move next door to us, unfortunately, and the Home Office move next door to us, but I want to see the change continuing. I think it's really, really important, and I'm very vocal, and Heather knows that, about making sure that we've got a really thriving Croydon partnership. There's been a lot of talk in the past 10 years about a new Westfield or new Croydon partnership. It's absolutely key that we create this because retail is the largest employer in Croydon. It's the largest employer in the UK. And at the moment, we face a near Armageddon type event in terms of what's happening in the high streets of the UK. And we need to make sure that we're holding on to our high streets and our town centres because they're absolutely pivotal to the social fabric. And I'm sure Anne-Marie knows that. We need to have thriving town centres so we don't have kids just hanging out in streets and, their peer models are drug dealers. We need to show them there's an alternative future. And that's what Onside do so great.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And just to add to what Heather and Roger have said there, for me, it's absolutely about skills and jobs. If we get those first two things right, as well as education, then people will have the affordability to find housing. If I think about what do young people want from Regeneration, they want to be involved. So it's not just about young people being entertained. They want to be involved and care about their local area and facilities. But they also need support to access the benefits of Regeneration as customers, but also as employees now and in the future. So I think there is a challenge to developers coming into the area to think about how can I provide skills and jobs. And I think we can be doing better on that front, but that's an opportunity for us to get together and problem solve and to make sure going forward we'll be able to provide both.
Great, thank you for that. And Daren, just on that point, we've had a question in the Q&A function about apprenticeships in particular. In terms of how you approach that at London Square, how do you ensure that actually has an impact and reaches the community?
We've got Neda, our social sustainability and community manager. She came on board recently after we'd set up partnerships. The construction industry is such an amazing industry to earn money in and to build a career. And it's become so unfashionable because of computer games and technology. And we know, because we've been talking for the last five years pre-pandemic about how there's a shortage of people coming into the industry. But without going into details of what people can necessarily earn, someone who's a brickie or a carpenter, an electrician or a plumber can be earning very good money a year. And we want to help people come into the industry. We want people to understand how interesting it can be, how much they can learn. I've worked with someone in the past who had a degree, was struggling to get into work and became a qualified electrician and now has his own business. All right. There are men and women who are desperate to get into work, and it's a great industry to be in. So with every development we work on, we go to local colleges, local job centres, local workplaces to try and find people who want to get work in the industry, who we can help train up and bring them into the sites. So we're always looking at local people first. And there's a couple of reasons. One, of course, because that's the best source, that's the easiest source to go to, and it's the most important one because that's what local people need. And secondly, because if I try and get someone in Croydon who's coming from somewhere across in, say, Waltham Forest, the chances are they won't stay in their job very long because it's such a hard journey to do. So we've got to get those local people. And touching on things like, I don't know how many trades are in Boxpark, but of all those trades in Boxpark, I would imagine there's a huge percentage of local people working there. And when we deliver our projects, those are the people that we want to reach out to, and they're the people we want to connect to.
Don't be taking our staff now, Daren.
Excellent. Okay. And another question we've had, Heather, is in relation to older people and ensuring that they're included as part of the discussion. Have you got and provided with the right form of housing? Have you got any thoughts in relation to that?
Yeah, that's quite an interesting discussion because whenever we do consultation, actually, it is older people who do take part. So they are much the most active group who articulate their requirements in terms of the local plan, for instance, or any sort of consultation event we do. That's not to say that we don't listen to what they have to say. I mean, they have a huge amount to say, and we are keen to hear it. And we also do provide specific policies to assist older people. And in fact, in our review of our local plan, I have specifically requested that we have a policy to address older people's housing needs, because I think this was an area that we couldn't demonstrably say, look, this is what we're doing, although bear in mind that older people are a huge demographic. Just because you are older doesn't mean that you won't have the same needs as somebody who's younger than you in some respects. It depends how old we're talking about, isn't it? I mean, I remember being flummoxed a few years ago when I was looking at a scheme and it was for older people who were apparently over the age of 50. And I remember the time thinking, oh my God, that's not far from me, is it? So I'm going to suddenly become this total different demographic. But one of the things, in terms of policies, I think crucially in terms of, the local plan, we need to make sure that we've got a wide range of housing types of all types, and different tenures as well. That's really important, because just because you're older, it doesn't mean that you are going to be of a certain, have a certain income profile, for instance. So different tenures, different typologies. We're looking for, a whole range of 1, 2, 3 bedroom properties in terms of delivery. We think it's really important because we need to provide a choice for older people so they can downsize, for instance, and free up property that is underoccupied. And that is actually a really key issue throughout the UK. And that's why particularly I wanted to make sure that we had a policy that was there for older people so that we could encourage people to move. And I think that addresses a question lots of times people say is, why are we having development in my area? And my area is a nice suburban area and it doesn't need any new homes. Well, actually, sometimes you have suburbs that are full of 5-bedroom detached houses, but that doesn't provide anywhere that people who've lived in those areas for a long time can downsize to. So it is important that you try and drive a range of different typologies throughout the borough so that people don't have to either move out of the borough or move to a completely different community or district centre. And just picking up on district centres and local centres, again, in terms of older people, in terms of all people, and this is young people as well, because often older people and younger people needs are not diametrically opposed. No. Often there are two groups of people who don't drive a car, for instance. And so it's really important that we create local centres and district centres that are accessible and walkable or cyclable for both the young and the old in our communities, because there will come a time when not everybody can drive. And it's a difficult thing that people have to get to when they have to hand their driving license back, knowing that they can walk to the local shops or it's a short journey away and get their needs is really, really important in terms of allowing them to stay in their own homes. And we also must make sure, in terms of talked earlier about the delivery of infrastructure, it's about things such as, health and well-being, making sure that we've got decent parks for all. Again, that's for everybody, regardless of age range. Decent sports facilities, and also culture as well, because we all need that to provide some a huge amount on different levels, isn't it? Culture's not just the icing on the cake. It's really fundamental to quality of health and well-being. And I suppose the stuff we're doing around the borough of culture is going to be really, really important in that. And I hope that older people and younger people, in fact everybody, gets really, really involved in that.
Fantastic, thank you, Heather. We've had another question, actually, at a point we were talking about in the pre-session in relation to the pandemic, which is very interesting, and clearly a seismic shift in terms of the way that people live and people's behaviours, etc. So I think want to throw open to the whole panel. How is the industry, so how is the public sector, private sector and the third sector actually ensuring that they're keeping close to changing community needs, and what sort of initiatives are people putting into place? Daren, I don't know whether you want to kick that one off, if you've got any thoughts on that.
I think the first thing is we aren't at liberty to tell a community what they actually need.
Yeah.
And it's about talking to the community, the people in the community. I'm working on a very interesting bid at the moment, so I can't talk about exactly where co-design is part of the discussion and part of the proposal that we take forward. So we're actually dealing with the local community to let them have a say. And everyone, I always go into any meeting when I'm talking to one of our public sector partners and saying, we can't tell you what your community wants, but we can talk to the community and find out what it is that they need, because they'll know what their needs are. I think there's a lot to say about how that conversation takes place and how you involve them. And I said to you, I said in the pre-discussion, I don't talk about us going back to normal. I talk about a new reality. And that new reality is how we design the homes that we're building. So we're starting to look at the design of our buildings to make sure that when someone maybe has a work from home policy or spends some of their time working from home, they've got a proper place in their home to live, even if they're in a one bed. So they've got a dedicated space and services to make sure they can connect to their internet, connect and sit down at a table and a desk that is private to the space. And then I think also you can look at the ground floor uses and the public spaces and make sure that there are the right sorts of local independent coffee shops, places where someone can sit down and find a quiet area, and also where if they want to collaborate with people, they can do that by asking them to meet at that space. And that way, whether you've got someone who lives across somewhere in Croydon at Selhurst and is coming into the town centre, or they're coming in from town and they're meeting someone, you're saying, look, why don't you come down? Let's sit face to face and have a conversation. And that whole work from home thing has stopped us. We're doing it now. We're talking through glass screens at the moment. And actually, the new environments that we create, the reality that we start to bring forward as a post-pandemic new reality, that can actually get people back into a face-to-face and having chats, but not necessarily having to dive in and out of town of their offices, but having local places to meet and greet.
I mean, Sam, we'd like to add on from what just Daren said there. One of the really interesting things was post sort of COVID, our best performing site was actually Croydon. Because what we've noticed is a migration towards what we would call chimney pots, to areas in which you've got lots of chimney pots, suburban areas. And suddenly, for the first time, people in those areas are starting to say to themselves, I don't need to go into London, whether it is to go for a night out or to go for the office. I'll just go locally. So actually, Boxpark Croydon was our best performing site post-COVID, because we just started noticing much more of the local community coming down to Boxpark, and it was fantastic, and it was noticeable how different demographics are. So I think if we're going to learn any lessons from a post-COVID world, and I agree 100% there with Daren that it's a new reality. I think there's a few different lessons. I think certainly when it comes to office buildings, I think people are really going to start to think, right, do we need that 10,000 person headquarters in central London, or actually do we need more satellite offices near our workers? So as a result of that, I think places like Croydon and places like Wembley will really benefit from that in a huge way. And it also comes down to, it's not just about offices, it's not just about homes, it also comes down to the retail and the leisure that's available. They want to have world-beating leisure on their doorsteps. They don't want to feel as though they have to go into London to have a great night out. So we've got to raise the bar when it comes to that. I mean, I'm not sure many people realise. At one stage, Whitgift was the largest shopping centre in Europe. In Europe, I'll say that again. That's how big it was. If Stratford could be regenerated, I tell you, Croydon is a walk in the park. It's one of the most affluent boroughs in the UK.
Yeah, I really love this question, because I think the pandemic has brought a fabulous opportunity for us to rethink about the relationship with our local constituents and really reframe what it means to be a community. And so this question is really timely. How do you go about it? Just as Daren said, it's about asking and it's about listening. At Legacy, we regularly survey our young people. So if you're ever interested in what's top of mind for young people in Croydon, then we can definitely provide those type of data insights to you. And we also have access to over 50,000 young people across the UK. So that's just one of the ways that we can partner with you and provide insights to that support the local community as well.
Okay.
From the council's point of view, I echo really what everyone's been saying. I think it's really interesting hearing what Anne-Marie's just been saying as well about and the huge resource. I'm just thinking that the young people that are who use Legacy, in terms of how we want to take forward the regeneration of the town centre, this is a really key priority for the town, for the council, and the acknowledgement that we had a plan that was set out well over 10 years ago, and at the time, I think that was the right thing to do at that time. However, as we've all lived through it, things have changed dramatically over those 10 years, and in particular over the last 2 years. The decline in retail and the pandemic, and also the council's financial situation as well. So what does that leave us with? We've got, as Roger said, a massive shopping centre that is in desperate need for regeneration. And I think there are huge amounts of positives, though, in Croydon. And we need to build on those. And first and foremost, it is the people in Croydon that I think are the greatest asset. I mean, Croydon's got fantastic physical assets, don't get me wrong, but it is the people and the attitude and the creativity, I think, in Croydon that is the absolute blinder in terms of where Croydon is in respect of anywhere else in the UK. And it is that has got to drive the regeneration of the town centre. And to that end, the council has set out how it wants to engage with both all its communities in Croydon and its key stakeholders. And we're going to be just after Christmas opening what we call an urban room on the north end. And this is an urban room is a facility we set up a couple of years ago for the local plan in one of the disused shop centres, shop units in the Whitgift. We want this time to put it in a much more high profile location. And that urban room would be a focus for activity so that people can drop in and see sort of different ideas and proposals. They can put their ideas and proposals. There'll be exhibitions, there'll be talks, and it's about engagement really across the piece about how do people see their town centre going forward, because there is no surefire way of how do you do it. Every town centre is different. We all know high streets are struggling, but as I said, I feel very positive because of all the huge assets that Croydon have got, and I think that we will come up with some great ideas and great proposals for how we take forward the regeneration of the Whitgift and the wider town centre as well. Because it's, Croydon Town Centre is not just about the Whitgift. We've got a much wider place. We've got a lot of residential development going into it. And we need to make sure that it's a place that people feel safe in, secure in, that they want to spend their lives in, and they want to spend their money in. So hopefully we will, through engagement with the community, come up with some really great plans and proposals and a regeneration action plan that we can set out clearly how we go forward, and that is totally shaped by local people.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed for that, Heather. So Anne-Marie, just from your perspective, we had a query on how we best keep local skills in terms of the youth work that you're doing within the borough. Have you got any thoughts from your work at Legacy in relation to that?
In terms of local skills, well, what I'd say is that our youth zones are open centres, so anybody in the borough can come along and volunteer. We do have an internal pathway for skills development. So, for example, our members can gain certifications in youth work. They often come on board as volunteers and then enter the area of youth work and can progress to, be part of the leadership teams, not just at Legacy, but a variety of our different youth zones across the UK as well. So there is an internal career path, but we also run enterprise and employability programs as well. And so people can come along, learn new skills. I heard Daren from London and Partners speak quite passionately about the need to build a pipeline of skills for the construction industry. And we're very keen on solving real world problems. And so, there's an invitation there for Daren and others who want to think longer term about the pipeline. Like, we'd welcome you to come down, speak to our young people, give them access to and visibility to what career might look like in the construction industry or perhaps another sector as well, but also talk to our staff about how we can partner, how we can help you solve that problem as well. So we have internal provisions. We want to partner with organisations like yourself to solve some of the broader skills gaps within the community as well. But we also need your help to do that. So, apprentices are great. But often our young people might not be apprenticeship ready. So we need businesses like yourselves to help us in the short term, bridge some of those gaps so the young people in this borough can be more useful for you and be your talent of tomorrow. So it's kind of like a chicken and egg or 360-degree scenario. But if we partner together, we can solve some of these talent shortages. We can ensure that the people in Croydon have the skills to really drive the economy in Croydon and have meaningful careers and great lifestyles within the borough.
Thank you very much, Anne-Marie. And Heather, one for you in relation to schools and GPs and general sort of social infrastructure. So when planning for all this growth, how do we ensure that local people, it's not that those services, etc., aren't overloaded, and that local people still get the benefit of schools and GP places that they would that they will need?
And this is why we prepare a local plan. And I know local plan can be a bit boring and tedious perhaps to some people, but to me it is a really important document for every single council, because it sets out there how a place is going to move forward over the next 15 to 20 years. So a lot of focus has always been on housing targets. That's obviously very important with the housing crisis, but sitting alongside that is about making sure we deliver all the right infrastructure in the same time period and in the right place effectively, and also how we're going to pay for it. So the local plan brings this all together and sets it out. So we identify locations for schools, for instance, to ensure that we've got enough school places, and there's a hell of a lot of work that goes on with our team, with colleagues in children's department about pupil place planning. So feel comfortable that schools are dealt with in that way. In terms of social infrastructure such as GP surgeries, that's more challenging because we have to work with partners, particularly the NHS, and they have different timeframes to plan on and different budget requirements and funding requirements, so that can be quite complex. And also GP surgeries are effectively businesses that are run by GPs, and so people sometimes say, well, why haven't you provided this, that and the other? But you are trying to negotiate with businesses effectively to get delivery. So it's quite complex and it takes a bit of time. But we do also have CIL, Community Infrastructure Levy, to help fund infrastructure. And again, the local plan is key to that because it sets out the CIL policies. And so the council collects funds from development that is caught by CIL regulations, and that funding, which runs into millions of pounds a year, is then collected by the council to allocate to the delivery of infrastructure throughout the borough. So yes, it's a key part of planning, and it's not perfect because there's never enough money to go around, but we do try our best to ensure that there is a delivery of appropriate infrastructure alongside housing.
Great, that's really helpful. Thank you for that. So I think we're drawing to a close. We've got about 10 minutes or so. So just to pose a final question, again, opening this out to everybody, what do you think is the most needed in Croydon's regeneration to ensure that it's inclusive and supporting the local community? So Anne-Marie, I don't know whether you want to kick that one off, if you've got any thoughts on that question. Quite a big question.
A very big question. I just think it's a partnership, right, between the companies in the real estate sector coming into a borough. I think, they just have to think about ways to involve the local community in what they're doing. Yeah. So we've talked about jobs and skills, but, feedback, understanding what's top of mind, what are the priorities, what do local people in Croydon really need? I think that's really important. And in terms of how you keep things inclusive, I think it's important for those developing in the area to keep an open mind as they think about their strategy, to be open to doing things in different ways and perhaps extending their networks. And so that requires, being a bit brave and very intentional, not necessarily using the same vendors that you've always used before, but researching local vendors that could actually benefit from some of the business, whether it's through procurement or supply chain, etc. So I think networks is something to think about as you think about development. So I'll stop
That's
there.
great.
Let
Thank
others
you.
input as well.
Sam, do you mind if I add?
Please, please do. Yeah.
I think Anne-Marie was being very gracious there, to be honest. I think, to be absolutely frank, I think Croydon needs to believe in itself first and foremost, and really believe that it can attract fantastic businesses and fantastic investors to Croydon. And I know that firsthand, so we've got to get that belief. I've been working in Croydon now for 5 years, and it's been a great experience, and our business has got better. And I would like to say that the council have been a major factor of that. They really have been open for business, and that's not rubbish. That's fact. They really want to attract new people to the area, and they're very welcoming. Going back to what we need to do, I'm going to actually again champion legacy. I actually think we need to do a lot more work when it comes to the youth of today in Croydon. I'll be absolutely frank. We've talked about jobs. We've talked about education. The kids of today in Croydon are not going to get to jobs and education if we can't get them off the streets at the age of 13. We need to start there. And unfortunately, one great private enterprise in the borough is not going to be enough. We need to have more Onsides within our borough and be the template for how we put youth services first and foremost, in our borough. We do, because we're not going to get the jobs. The kids are just going to be distracted and do other things, and we're going to lose them before we can get a chance to educate them or give them jobs. So I really do see that as a really important social issue that we've got within Croydon Borough, and definitely when it comes to single parents, it's absolutely key. I will go on again about Croydon Partnership. I think it's absolutely key that something happens there, and if those parties are not willing to step up and make it happen, we should be open to other people coming along, because it needs to happen. But the reality is, I've sat in meetings with Heather, and there is some fantastic, actually the biggest property funds in the UK interested in investing in Croydon. So it's not lacking interest. We've now got to turn that interest into action and make it happen. So, don't think for 1 minute that Croydon is lacking interest. Some of the biggest property funds that I know in the UK are looking at Croydon, and we just got to believe in our borough and just say, look, if you're not willing to step up, other people are more than willing to step up.
Great. Daren, have you got anything to add on that?
Well, yeah, I think we've got to grab the post-pandemic bull by the horns, see it as an opportunity. Everyone knows economically it's going to be a challenge, but there is so much opportunity. I've been working on development in Croydon for the last 15 years. I remember the Croydon Riots and what happened at that time, and how Croydon was bold enough to draw its way out of all of that tragedy and that difficulty and make something of it. And the pandemic has been obviously much, much worse than that. And I'd echo what Roger said, actually. I'm pleased that Anne-Marie's and what they're doing at Legacy is fantastic. But actually, Croydon, to get back believing in itself, it's done it before, it'll do it again. It's back on an upward journey, and there's plenty of developers and house builders who want to invest. There's plenty of opportunity with people who want to provide all sorts of work, not just construction, and will come to Croydon. It's such an amazingly well-connected town centre and an area. And, we went to West Croydon because we could see the importance of linking East Croydon and West Croydon and showing some faith in that part of the borough that was otherwise left to one side. Let's all get behind Croydon again. Let's all support what it wants to do. Croydon Partnership, Legacy, everything. It is coming together, but we've got to take this bull by the horns and just crack on and go forward.
Great, fantastic. And finally, Heather, is there anything that you'd like to add?
I guess on one hand, I would agree with all the contributions made by people, but I'd slightly take issue with one thing, which is like we've lost faith in ourselves. And I'd say, no, we haven't. When I think back to when I first came to Croydon 5-6 years ago, there was nowhere near the amount of cranes and development then. In fact, there was very little cranes and development going on at the time. I had the feeling that we were on the cusp of something. But you walk around Croydon Town Centre now and you see what's happening in terms of development and construction and activity that's going on is people do believe in it, very much so. Perhaps there is an overemphasis on the fact that the WIT gift hasn't come forward, and that is hugely disappointing. I think, and I will go on record saying that I think it's probably best that it didn't come forward, because if it had come forward in the format that it was proposed to be, we would have been stuck with a massive white elephant at this point in time. You know, a shopping centre that was, you know, built with the ethos of 10 years ago. And in fact, whilst it's going to be difficult because we haven't, you know, we've got a degenerative sort of, you know, a degenerating town centre or shopping centre at this point in time, at least we've got a point where we can start to engage with people and do something which is right and fit for purpose, instead of, you know, a shopping centre that's going to be empty, a brand new shopping centre that's going to be empty, and that we all look at and go, how on earth are we ever going to deal with that? So I would say Croydon does believe in itself. I think, though, after the pandemic, we really do have to collaborate, though, and it is a different type of working, perhaps less about just bringing in developers, more about focusing on people and getting local people to help shape what's going on, and to also look beyond the obvious, and to I think in Croydon there are certain organisations that like to knock it. And I don't think that that's right. I think there's lots of really, really good things. Sometimes decisions are made that aren't necessarily really straightforward and easy to understand. I would say, before you knock it, find out why those decisions were made. There may be good reasons behind it. And just also get involved. Really, really get involved and help shape it.
Great. Okay. Well, I think it just leaves it to me to draw things to a close. I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank the panel. Thanks everyone for your contributions. Really interesting conversation. And for members of the audience, for those that posed questions, again, thank you very much indeed. And hope you enjoy the remainder of the sessions. Amy, I think at that point I hand back.
Yeah, thank you, Sam, and thank you to our panel for a great discussion. Looking ahead, we'd be delighted to see you tuning in to some of our other sessions this week. Details of what's coming up should be on your screen. So we have at 9:30, we have a keynote, followed by a session in partnership with Impost UK, as well as another session in partnership with Building Garden Communities. Our final session of the day tomorrow will be a wellbeing break. And in addition to that, we'll be now sharing a video supported by our wellness partner, Firma Group, which will be on your screen shortly. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and we look forward to see you again later this week.
Hi, I'm Cosmin, Wellness Manager at Terme Bucharest, one of Europe's largest well-being facilities. Supporting people's well-being is at the heart of everything we do at Terme Group, and that's why we're very proud to be the well-being partner of Real Estate Live 2021. We wanted to give you a small reminder about the importance of taking regular breaks from your screen for your mental and physical health. Researchers found that if you take breaks after 1.5 hours or 1 hour for 10-15 minutes, it helps improve your mood, your concentration, your focus, and also protects your muscle and your joints. So don't forget to take a break from your desk after this session. Stretching, going outside, or making a cup of tea will gonna help you improve your physical well-being. I hope you enjoyed the incredible session at Real Estate Live 2021, and that one day we're gonna have the chance to meet in person here in Terme Bucharest. Take care and enjoy.